Champions have humility. That may seem counter to the impression we have of big, strong, confident champions, right? But champions have to have humility because champions, it's about improving every step of the way. The competition gets fiercer, doesn't it, as they move along? Just like many of us as we move along in our careers and our jobs, right? Competition gets a little bit fiercer. More is expected of us, the more success we have. You've probably seen very successful people in your previous roles or in your companies that are very successful, but their ego gets in the way of improving, right? Well, humility is the opposite of ego getting in the way. Humility is about constant and never-ending improvement. It's about looking inside ourselves. How can we get better? Improvement. Constant and never-ending improvement. You know, it's about feedback. Champions crave feedback. Champions get feedback sometimes whether they want it or not. Right? They get it from their coaches. Right? They get it from the fans, the people that come watch them. They get feedback. May not want it from many of the sources, right? Sometimes, depending on our maturity level, our emotional level in the situation, we're not quite as open to looking for our areas of improvement, are we? Stuff gets in the way, filters. And the source, sometimes the source gets in the way of who's telling us, who's giving us that feedback, whether it's solicited or unsolicited. I've learned this very profoundly as well, another one of life's little lessons. On September 17th, 1997, a date that will live in personal infamy for me. I was taking a class at a local university to finish my master's degree. 15 years after it started, that's another story. I came home from class about 9:15, 9:30 that night, and I was greeted at the door by my wife, Sharon. Sharon comes up to me as I come in through the door with my books, barely able to put them down on the kitchen table. Skip, we have to talk. How many of you have ever heard that phrase before? We know what's coming next? Yes, she wanted a divorce. You know, it shocked me that she actually took the initiative to do something about what was going on, but it didn't surprise me because I knew what was going on. I chose to put my head in the sand, sort of ignore it, hope it would get better. Never does, though, does it? Unless you do something about it. So we had this conversation. What she said next really knocked me over and floored me. She said, Skip, I'm tired of being yelled at. I'm tired of being degraded. I'm tired of being made to feel stupid. Now, that was not easy to hear. Sort of the source of the feedback got in the way there. For a couple of reasons. One, those were some of the same language I used to describe the environment in my household when I grew up. She was now accusing me of taking on the same behaviors of stuff I swore I would never do, based on the environment I grew up in. How do you think I responded? How much humility do you think I responded with that night? Yeah, 0. Less than 0, probably. I lashed out. I attacked back. What are you yelling at me for? I provide a good living. I have a good career. I'm at the top of my profession. We have a good lifestyle. I'm a good husband. I think you're just too sensitive. That went over well. Some of you may have experienced similar conversations. So that was a very trying time, very humbling time. I learned a lot of humility in that process. Went through counseling, the whole 9 yards. A few weeks into counseling, she gives me a book, The Verbally Abusive Relationship. I agreed to read it for the sake of saving the marriage and promised our therapist I would do this, so I'm reading the book. Every page thereabouts I'm noticing my behaviors. I'm reading about me in the book. Also reading about some experiences from my childhood, interactions between my parents and things like that. That was an aha moment. I'm turning into, right? We swore we'd never do that. There's no more motivating a force in the world than that. So it was time to do something about it. I took the feedback. Not in enough time to do anything about that relationship. We both moved on. I think we're both happier. But it was a very humbling experience. I learned humility during that process.